moment. All right, folks, it is 9 a.m. We're going to get started. There are a lot of people that haven't shown up yet. That's just the way it goes. They can wait. I got a little issue here. So give me just a second, please. Okay, so let me mark some lates here real quick. This is really frustrating. All right, here's some late people coming in. All right, so what we're going to do today is go over the joiner. Okay, we're going to go over the joiner. Any of the questions that are covered on the safety test on the joiner, as well as a few other things, a little more detail on it. So here we go. So first of all, let's take a look at what we have for today. All right. So we go to modules here. Remember, I always want you guys to check your announcements to make sure there's no new announcements or anything like that. We'll go to modules. You'll notice that, well, hopefully you'll notice that the lecture from yesterday morning is up. The video is up. So if you missed it, you can always watch that. We're also going to have a quiz today that's not quite published yet. It'll be published after we go through this lecture, but you'll have time during class to take the quiz. If you look at Wednesday right here, which is today, we're going to go over proper and safe use of the joiner. After the lecture, you have a quiz that you'll need to take. The major tool identification sheet will help you with the quiz, and that's this right here. So if you open this document, okay, all you have to do is scroll down in the document a little bit and you'll find the jointer. Okay, all the questions on the quiz are answered in this. Okay, if you don't know the answer, it's found right here. All right, so that's where we are. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. So that is in the modules under Wednesday. I'll show you once again. Okay, Wednesday, there it is. All right, so let's get started. So let's start with the main function of the joiner. Okay, the main purpose of the joiner, let me get this where I can see it. There we go. Oh my goodness. I want it full screen. It's not going full screen for me. What is the deal here? All right, so here we go. What is the deal? All right, so so I guess that girl left. She's probably in the wrong class. Okay, so make sure we're recording and all that. All right, so the main purpose of the joiner, okay? Let me zoom out of this a little bit so you can see what's going on. The main purpose of the joiner is to flatten the face of a board and or to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. Okay, remember we have two faces, two edges, and two ends. All right, so that's the main purpose of the joiner. A couple rules on the joiner that we can and can't do. Number one, no sheet goods are allowed on the joiner. What I mean by that is no particle board, no plywood, no manufactured stuff like this. Okay, the reasoning behind that is that we can safely assume that the edges of sheet goods are already flat, straight, and square, and we can safely assume that the faces of sheet goods are already flat, straight, and square. There is no need to joint sheet goods, okay? So we don't even allow it on this machine, okay? The board that you're preparing to joint must be at least 12 inches long, okay? So this board here, 19 inches long, we can joint the edge or the face of it. It's okay. If our board's 8 inches long or 10 inches long or 6 inches long, we cannot use the jointer on it, okay? It's too short. So 12-inch minimum length. Another thing, so we talked about faces, edges, and ends being a dimensional thing. In other words, the face is the largest surface area we have, the edge is the longest edge, and the end is the shortest. So there's a difference between faces, edges, ends, and face grain, edge grain, and end grain, because as you see in this little piece of maple, okay, you can see the grain direction in this board is going this way, not this way, okay? So what we have here is a situation where these are the faces, these are the edges, and these are the ends due to the dimensions of the board, the measurements of it, something we can physically check. But we have end grain, edge grain, and face grain, right? This is an edge, these are edges, but they're end grain, okay? So dimensionally, it's different than it is structurally. In other words, the physical aspects of the board. So we do not joint end grain. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, generally, you're not gonna have a board that's at least 12 inches wide, okay? So you can't do it like this. It's gotta be 12 inches along the fence or along the table, okay? If you set it up like this, you're only looking at 3.5 inches, okay? That's not enough contact to the table or the fence, okay? That's our 12-inch minimum. We meet that. We don't with this. The other issue with jointing end grain, and I'll see if this will work. Let's try it. Not too bad. But usually what happens on some materials is a giant chunk of material gets ripped off the back corner of this where it exits the cutter head, okay? So it's gonna damage your material as well. So it's too small and it can damage your material when the cutter head exits. Oh, I got some people wanting to get in late. Okay, next. One thing we never, ever, ever, ever do is move this guard out of the way while we're joining something. The guard must always cover the cutter head. If we're joining a face or an edge, this guard is spring loaded. It's gonna move out of the way enough so that we can run our board, right? Same thing with the face. It's gonna move out of the way enough so we can join our board. But you can never prop this open. I've had students try to prop this open with a stick, and I can't understand why they want to do it. That guard will always stay in place. There's not a single guard on any machine in this shop that you can remove. If there's a guard on a machine, you have to keep it in place. You cannot move it. You cannot disable it, okay? So we talked about end grain. We talked about minimum length. You cannot use sheet goods on this, only solid stock. The main purpose of the jointer is to flatten the face of a board or flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. There's another person wanting to get in late. You guys need to get to class on time, okay? Period. You need to get to class on time. So, a couple other things about the jointer. Let me see where I was going before somebody came in late. Let's see here. All right, so the main purpose. So what we're trying to do here is if you take a board like this and the surface, this outfeed table, this infeed table are some of the flattest surfaces in the shop along with the table saw beds, the dado saw bed, things like that. Any machined surface like this is usually pretty flat. So what we run across in a lot of lumber is we can see things like twist. So if you set it on here, I'm going to zoom this in a little bit so you can see it. Let's get it on here. Go down a little bit and go wrong way. I always go the wrong way when I try to turn this thing. Okay. And up here. So here's a situation where a board has some twist in it. So if we set the board on this flat surface and we put our fingers on opposite corners, you can see that it's rocking on it. In other words, this board has some twist in it. It's got twist. If you look down it would look twisted at one end, okay? We can also have a situation where a board has some bow in it, okay? And you'll see by this, okay, that it rocks on this surface. Make sure you can see it, okay? It's rocking. In other words, it's got a bow. It's got a bow like this, okay, along its length. All right, so we're trying to correct those things, okay? The same thing happens on the edge of a board. The edge, that's when we're trying to joint the face of a board. The edge of a board can be irregular. It can be dips and all over the place, okay? So that's one of the things we're trying to correct when we joint the edge of a board, okay? So when we do this, I'm gonna grab a different board so that, here, this is a good example. So when we joint the face of a board, this one actually is touching at both ends, but not in the center. You can actually see it kind of bend a little bit, maybe, okay? And if I put it this way, it's gonna rock on it like this, okay? Sitting here doing this number on it. So we're trying to correct that. When I run the joiner, if I have a bow and a board like that, I wanna run it like this, where it's touching at the ends, but not at the center. So let's go ahead and mark the face of this board up that we're gonna joint. Okay. One other thing, we must always use push pads. We can't do this with our bare hands. Okay. And it matters where you put pressure on the boards with these pads. Okay. So what I want to do, and you'll kind of see, watch where my pressure is and where I keep the pads. Once the board exits the cutter head, this right here, and gets onto the outfeed table, that's where my pressure is going to be, is down on the outfeed table, okay? I don't want to put a lot of pressure on the infeed table once my boards cross this threshold where the cutter head is, okay? So, and I don't want to push down real hard because I'm forcing the bend out of this board, which is what I'm trying to correct. So we see that we've got marks all the way down the face of the board. My guess is that these will disappear first and we'll still have some marks in the center. Let's see how it works. Listen to the machine as well. So it may have got it all, but you can hear there's a little bit of pencil marks left right here. So it didn't quite touch the whole surface, so we have to run it one more time, okay? So now what we have is a board with a nice flat face, okay? The opposite face still rocks. If I set this on the table, the opposite face that we haven't touched yet will still rock. But this board now, there's no bow in that far side, okay? So that's what we're trying to correct. So basically what we have is we have one really nice flat face right here, and we have a bowed surface here. So this is our good face. That's our starting point. From here, we can go to the planer. We can put the jointed face down in the planer. On the planer, the cutter head is above the board. So it's going to remove material from the top surface. So we've got the flat surface down here. The planer, once we go over there, will now remove surface from the top. It will make two parallel faces, okay, and it will make it a consistent thickness. So no matter where we measure the thickness of the board, it'll be the same, okay. So when it comes to the edge of a board, all right, let me set this up real quick. What we're trying to do on the edge of the board is to flatten, straighten, and square the edge. So we'll mark up this edge with a pencil. And like I said yesterday, this is one of those machines, in fact, all of them, but this is really particular in that the sound it makes as it's doing its job is going to tell you when the job is done, okay? You don't want to keep joining it, keep joining it, keep joining it after the edge is already flat, straight, and square. So we've done a face joint, now we do an edge joint. I want you to listen to the machine. The board's marked on the edge. You might even be able to see what I did to this board. I took a big chunk out of it right here on the bandsaw, okay? So it's got a curve to the edge. So you should be able to hear that when it runs. All right, and you can see the pencil marks are only from here to here now, okay? We got this surface, we got this surface. We're gonna go again. It should get smaller in the middle. You can hear it's not quite done. We're down to about this long in the center with marks on it still. I can't see it on my screen. I don't know if you guys can. Maybe one or two more passes. Still not done. About this much now left to go. That sounded pretty consistent. All my pencil marks are gone. Edge of this board is done. It's nice and flat and straight and square, okay? So, hold on, I got somebody still trying to get in. All right, so that's the main purpose of the joiner, okay? Flatten the face of a board, okay? Flatten the face of a board, and to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board, okay? No board less than 12 inches long is allowed on this machine. So I could not joint that. It's too short, not to mention the fact that this here and this here is end grain. We also do not joint end grain, all right? We also do not joint sheet goods, manufactured material, particle board, plywoods, things like that. We do not joint sheet goods. We don't joint the face, we don't joint the edge, we don't joint anything on these boards, mainly because we can safely assume that the edges are already flat, straight, and square, and the faces are already flat, so there's no need to joint them, okay? So that's where we are, all right? So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna publish this quiz, all right? Hold on, that's not how I wanna do it. You're gonna go online. Come on, this thing's in the way. Okay, and you should be able to find this quiz now under Wednesday for this current week. Go to modules, go to joiner quiz, right? And it should open up. Okay, I'm gonna stay here online. So if you have questions, you can ask, all right? Once you've completed the quiz, please come back to this, type your name into the chat window, and you can leave. You'll be done for the day, or done for my class anyway, okay? So go ahead and go take the quiz. Once you're done with it, type your name in this chat window for my attendance, and then you're ready to bail, okay? So good luck, folks. MDF, Drake.